The screen was dark, but the audio was crystal clear, the sound of a key turning in a lock that wasn't supposed to exist yet. Then a woman's laugh. Not a polite social laugh, but something thick with a private, filthy intimacy. It was the kind of sound a woman makes when she's standing in a room she thinks she's already conquered. My heart didn't just beat. It hammered against my ribs like a trapped animal sensing a predator in the tall grass. I was sitting in my brand new living room, surrounded by the scent of fresh paint and expensive candles from our housewarming party, watching a video of my husband letting another woman into this very space 2 weeks before he told me we'd even signed the papers. I stared at the grains of the footage, my breath hitching. The camera was shaky, hidden in the shadows of the hallway, capturing the moment my perfect life began to liquefy. My name is Aria. I'm 28. 3 days ago, I was the envied wife at a party, toast of the town, standing beside a man who looked at me with what I thought was adoration. But this morning, buried at the bottom of a gift bag, between a silk scarf and a Home Sweet Home card, I found a silver flash drive. The note taped to it was jagged, written in a frantic, pressurized hand. Watch this while he's at work. Then you'll understand why he was in such a hurry to buy this place. At first, I told myself it was a prank. A bitter ex, a jealous friend, some pathetic attempt to shake my confidence. But as the video brightened, revealing the sun-drenched floorboards of our master bedroom, unfurnished, skeletal, and private, the denial died in my throat. I saw him. Daniel, my husband. He wasn't just walking. Through the house. He was guiding her through it like a prize. And then she turned around. It was Mara. She wasn't a stranger. She was the work emergency that kept him out until midnight. She was the marketing strategist whose name appeared on his screen at 6 a.m. She was the woman he swore I was imagining things about whenever I mentioned how her perfume seemed to linger on his suit jackets like a territorial marking. Seeing her in our sanctuary before it was even ours felt like a physical violation, a literal colonizing of my future. Loneliness makes dangerous choices feel reasonable. I realised then that I had been lonely for months, even while sleeping next to him, because he had already moved out emotionally. He had built a ghost house inside our real one. I watched, mesmerised by my own destruction. The camera followed them into the kitchen. Daniel leaned against the marble counter, the one we'd spent 3 hours picking out, and tucked a strand of hair behind Mara's ear. His touch was so casual, so practiced, it made my stomach turn. Just a little longer, he murmured into the silence of the video. She won't suspect a thing, I swear. I paused the frame. My hands were shaking so violently I had to grip the edge of the desk. She won't suspect a thing. He wasn't talking about a fling. He was talking about a timeline, a strategy. I hit play again, my eyes burning. Mara walked into the bedroom, my bedroom, and threw her arms wide. Poor Aria, she said, her voice dripping with a mockery so thick it was almost predatory. Did she really think you bought this place for her? Daniel laughed. It wasn't the nervous laugh of a man caught in a lie. It was the warm, resonant laugh he used when he told me he loved me. She was the easiest part of this, he said, sounding almost proud of himself. She trusts too much. She's the perfect ghost. The video cut to black. The silence in my actual apartment felt deafening, heavy with the weight of what I'd just heard. He didn't just want her, he wanted me out. But why the apartment? Why the rush? I didn't cry. The tears felt too expensive for a man this cheap. Instead, a cold, surgical clarity began to settle over me. If I was the easiest part, it was because I had been playing by a set of rules he had already shredded. Have you ever realised that the person sleeping next to you is actually a stranger wearing a familiar face? I went to our home office. I started pulling files. If this was a scheme, as the note suggested, the evidence wouldn't be in a video, it would be in the ink. I spent 4 hours digging through mortgage applications, insurance riders, and bank statements. And then I found it. Tucked behind a standard homeowners association agreement was an unsigned amendment form. My heart stopped. It was a liability transfer. If Daniel defaulted, On the loan, or if certain conditions were met, the entire financial weight of the $3 million mortgage shifted onto me. Not us. Me. He had set it up so that he owned the equity, but I owned the debt. It was a financial execution disguised as a fresh start. I sat back, the paper crinkling in my hand. He hadn't bought a home for us. He had built a cage for me and a penthouse for them. Desire whispers louder than guilt. Daniel's desire for a life with Mara had completely silenced any shred of conscience he had left. He was willing to bankrupt my soul and my bank account to fund his second act. That evening I heard the front door open. "Arya? Honey, I'm home." His voice was cheerful. I felt a surge of nausea, but I pushed it down. I stood up, smoothed my hair and walked into the hallway. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the way his eyes avoided mine for a split second before locking on with a rehearsed warmth. I saw the slight tension in his shoulders. "How was work?" I asked, my voice steady. "Exhausting," he said, kissing my forehead. "Mara and the team are pushing that new campaign hard. I might have to go back in for a few hours later." I smiled. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. "Of course. Work is important." He didn't notice the change. He was too arrogant to believe I could ever be a threat. While he showered, I moved with a silent, focused intensity. I called a lawyer I knew through my father, a man who specialized in high-stakes fraud. I sent him photos of the amendment, the flash drive files, and the bank transfers I'd flagged. "This is premeditated financial entrapment," the lawyer whispered over the phone. "Arya, don't say a word to him. Not yet. We need the trap to snap shut." I spent the next 2 hours acting the part of the doting wife. I made dinner. I asked about his day. I even let him hold my hand. Every touch felt like a burn, but I needed him comfortable. I needed him to believe his easy wife was still sleeping. Is it possible to love someone and want to destroy them at the same time? Or is the destruction just the final form of the love they wasted? By 9 cold p.m., the lawyer messaged me. The real estate agent had confirmed the logs. Daniel had used a secondary key to access the unit 6 times before the closing date, always with a consultant, always with Mara. I waited until he was in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed we'd chosen together. I walked in, holding a manila envelope. The air in the room felt thick, charged with the electricity of a coming storm. "Daniel." "Yeah, babe." He didn't even look up from his phone. "I found something you dropped." I tossed the envelope onto the duvet. He opened it casually. I watched his face. I watched the blood drain from his cheeks. I watched the way his fingers began to tremble as he saw the stills from the video, the shots of him and Mara in the kitchen, the copy of the forged amendment, the logs from the real estate agent. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a person. He didn't move for a long time. Then, he looked at me. The adoration was gone. In its place was a raw, naked panic. "Arya, listen. This isn't what it looks like. It was a joke. We were just scouting the place." "A joke?" I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Is the liability transfer a joke too? Is the I part where you said I was the easiest part the punchline?" He scrambled off the bed, his voice rising in that desperate, high-pitched tone of a man who knows he's drowning. "I can explain. I was doing it for us, to protect our assets." "You weren't protecting assets, Daniel. You were harvesting me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I hit a single button. A moment later, the doorbell rang. Not a soft chime, but a persistent, authoritative knock. Daniel froze. "Who is that?" "The consequences," I said softly. 2 officers stood in our foyer. My lawyer had been thorough. Since there was evidence of document forgery and attempted financial fraud involving a federally backed mortgage, this wasn't just a divorce. It was a crime scene. As they read him his rights, Daniel turned to me, his face a mask of betrayal. "How could you do this? After everything I gave you?" "You didn't give me anything, Daniel," I said. watching as the handcuffs clicked shut over his wrists. "You just lent me a life you intended to take back. I'm just returning the favour." As they led him out, he looked back at the apartment, at the marble, the view, the dream he'd tried to steal. He looked hollow. He had gambled on my weakness and lost his entire world. But the story didn't end when the police car pulled away. The next morning, another envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a second flash drive. When I plugged it in,